The village was abuzz with excitement on New Year's Eve. The royal palace had announced a grand ball to welcome the new year, inviting all eligible citizens to join the festivities. But for Cinderella, the celebration seemed as distant as the stars twinkling above her small, worn-down home. Inside the cold kitchen, Cinderella scrubbed the stone floor while her stepmother and stepsisters prepared to leave for the ball. Lavinia and Drusilla, her stepsisters, flaunted their vibrant gowns while their mother barked orders, ensuring every detail of their appearance was perfect. "Cinderella," Lavinia snapped. "Polish my shoes again. They don't shine enough for the prince." "And fix my hem," Drusilla added. "You didn't sew it properly." "Yes, ma'am," Cinderella replied quietly, forcing a smile as she carried out their demands. Deep down, her heart longed for just one evening free of chores and mockery. As the grand clock in the village square struck 8, her family departed, leaving Cinderella alone. The house was silent except for the faint crackling of the fireplace. She stepped outside into the crisp winter night, her breath visible in the frigid air. Looking up at the moon, she whispered, "If only I could start the new year with a chance to feel free, even for one night." The wind picked up, swirling the snow into a glowing spiral. Suddenly, a warm light bathed the garden, and Cinderella gasped as her fairy godmother appeared. "My dear Cinderella," said the fairy, her voice like a melody. "New Year's Eve is a time for miracles and fresh beginnings. Tonight, you shall attend the ball." "But I have nothing to wear, no way to get there," Cinderella said, tears glistening in her eyes. With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed Cinderella's rags into a stunning gown of silver and gold, with intricate embroidery that shimmered like moonlight. Her bare feet were encased in delicate glass slippers, and a pumpkin in the corner of the garden became a magnificent carriage drawn by 4 white horses. "Remember," the fairy warned gently, "the magic ends at midnight. You must return before the clock strikes 12. "I will." "Thank you," Cinderella exclaimed, her heart pounding with excitement as she climbed into the carriage. The horses neighed, and the carriage set off toward the palace. The palace was breathtaking, illuminated by thousands of lanterns that cast a golden glow over the surrounding gardens. Guests in dazzling attire filled the grand ballroom, their laughter and chatter mingling with the orchestra's lively music. When Cinderella arrived, all eyes turned to her. The crowd parted as she stepped inside, her gown glinting under the chandeliers like a cascade of stars. The prince, standing at the head of the room, froze as he caught sight of her. He moved toward her with purpose, bowing deeply. "You must be the most enchanting guest here tonight. May I have the honor of a dance?" Cinderella hesitated, her cheeks flushing. I'd be honored," she said softly. As the music began, the prince guided her onto the dance floor. They moved in perfect harmony, the rest of the ballroom fading into the background. "What is your name?" the prince asked, his tone gentle. Cinderella hesitated, remembering the fairy godmother's warning. "Does it matter? Tonight, I'm simply me." The prince smiled, charmed by her honesty. Then let's make tonight unforgettable. Tell me, what is your wish for the new year? To be seen for who I truly am, she said, her voice trembling. Not as someone unworthy or invisible. The prince's gaze softened. And I wish to find someone who sees me as more than just a prince. Tonight, let us both be free. They danced long into the evening, laughter and joy filling the air. The clock struck 11, its chime echoing through the ballroom. Cinderella felt a pang of worry but decided to savor every remaining moment. The prince led her to a quieter corner of the palace gardens, where snowflakes sparkled like diamonds under the moonlight. "Do you believe in new beginnings?" he asked. "I want to," Cinderella replied. "But it's hard when the past weighs so heavily." The prince nodded thoughtfully. The new year is a chance to let go of the past and embrace hope. That's why this night is so special. Cinderella smiled, her heart lightened by his words. But as the clock neared midnight, her joy turned to panic. "I have to go," she said abruptly, stepping back. "What? Why?" The prince's confusion was evident. "I'm sorry, but I can't explain." She turned and ran, her glass slippers clinking against the marble floor. As she descended the grand staircase, the clock began to strike midnight. The magic began to unravel, her gown lost its luster, and the carriage waiting outside transformed back into a pumpkin. One glass slipper slipped from her foot as she raced away. The morning after the ball, the palace was alive with activity. Servants rushed through the halls, carrying news of the prince's plan to search for the mysterious woman who had captured his heart. He had one clue, a single glass slipper. In the throne room, the prince declared his intentions to his advisors. "This slipper belongs to her. I will search every corner of the kingdom until I find the woman who fits it." "But Your Highness," an advisor protested, "how can you be certain she is the right one? There may be others who try to deceive you." The prince held the slipper tightly. "Her heart is what I seek. If the shoe fits, I will know." News of the search spread quickly, and soon every household was preparing for the prince's arrival. In Cinderella's home, her stepmother and stepsisters plotted their own schemes. "You must make it fit, Drusilla," the stepmother insisted. "If one of you marries the prince, we will be rich beyond measure." "But what if it doesn't fit?" Drusilla asked nervously. "Then you'll force it," Lavinia snapped. "He'll never know the difference." Cinderella overheard their conversation while sweeping ashes from the fireplace. Her heart sank. She had no illusions about what would happen if the prince chose one of her stepsisters. They would never be kind rulers. Later that day, the prince and his royal entourage arrived at their doorstep. The stepmother greeted him with exaggerated politeness. "Your Highness, welcome to our humble home. My daughters are eager to meet you." Drusilla went first, struggling to shove her foot into the delicate slipper. "Perhaps if I just," she grunted as she tried again, but it was no use. Next was Lavinia, who fared no better. It must have shrunk overnight, she exclaimed, forcing a laugh. The prince, unimpressed, turned to the stepmother. Are there no other young women in this household? The stepmother hesitated, her face paling. Oh, well, there is, our servant girl. But she's hardly worth your time. I will decide that, the prince said firmly. Summoned reluctantly, Cinderella entered the room, her head bowed. Her stepmother shot her a warning glare, but the prince smiled warmly at her. Please, try the slipper, he said. Cinderella sat and gently slid her foot into the shoe. It fit perfectly. Gasps filled the room as the prince knelt before her. It's you, he whispered. The stepmother and stepsisters erupted in protests. This is absurd. She's just a servant. The prince rose, silencing them with a stern look. She is more than her station. She is kind, genuine, and courageous, all qualities I admire. I will not let her go. Turning to Cinderella, he said softly, You are the woman I danced with last night, aren't you? Yes, she admitted, tears in her eyes. But I never meant to deceive you. I thought it was a dream, one that would end at midnight. It's a dream worth keeping, the prince said, taking her hands. Will you allow me to make it a reality? Will you be my partner in life, my queen, and my equal? Cinderella hesitated, her heart racing. I never imagined this could happen to me, she said, her voice trembling. But if you truly see me for who I am, then yes. I would be honored. The prince smiled, lifting her to her feet. Then let us start the new year together, not as strangers, but as partners. The stepmother's face turned red with fury. This is preposterous. She belongs to us. Enough, the prince commanded. From this day forward, she belongs to herself. He turned to his guards. Escort these women out. They are no longer welcome in her life. Cinderella watched as her stepmother and stepsisters were led away, feeling a weight lifted from her heart. For the first time, she was free. The palace prepared for a grand New Year's celebration like no other. Cinderella, now dressed in a gown even more beautiful than the one her fairy godmother had created, stood beside the prince on the balcony overlooking the kingdom. The clock was minutes away from midnight, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Lanterns lit up the night sky, their glow reflecting off the snow-covered rooftops. The prince turned to her, his eyes full of warmth. This is our beginning, Cinderella. A new year, a new chapter, for both of us. I never thought I'd have a chance like this, she said, her voice filled with wonder. To not only be loved but to truly belong. You've always belonged, the prince said. It just took the right moment to see it. The clock began to chime midnight. As the final bell rang, fireworks exploded across the sky, painting it in vibrant colors. The crowd below cheered, their voices carrying through the crisp winter air. The prince and Cinderella shared a kiss, sealing their promise to each other. Around them, the palace erupted in celebration, but for Cinderella, the world seemed to fade. All that mattered was this moment, the start of a life filled with hope, love, and the freedom to be herself. As the new year dawned, Cinderella looked out over the kingdom and smiled. For the first time, the future felt as bright as the fireworks lighting up the sky.